probably be something about tentacles, knowing us. Sorry, Zach. Anna and I both have a sort of horny energy. So I know that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay. What's funny is that of the people on Bad Pod, I am the least horny.
Oh,
yes, I know. But that's like it's like being the slowest Olympic runner. Like you still have high chaos energy. And we're talking about the Hanar, which means that I had to bring up Fornax.
Yeah.
So,
right.
like, okay.
What's the swear policy on here?
Absolutely swear as much as you fucking want.
Great. Cool.
I censor Monster Mechanics because I think it's funnier there, and then I cannot put explicit tags, but there's way too much swearing in Mass Effect, commentary, because there's it's so fucking it's such a fucking horny game.
It really is.
It is. It really is. I mean, the fact that Fornax exists.
Yeah, they didn't hide what they were doing. They just wear it on their sleeve, which I have to respect them for.
Yeah,
okay.
Lampshade that for sure.
So, welcome audience. I'm just going to start into this. We're just going to roll. Welcome audience to our first squad mate recruitment, I think is what we're going to call these segments, which is when we have guests on to talk about Mass Effect. Today we have Anna. Anna, who are you and how did you get into Mass Effect?
Hi, I'm one of the co-hosts on the Complete Discography, spelled Compleat, because we are awful at SEO, and the Babylon Project. Those are podcasts respectively doing a reread of the entire Discworld book series and a rewatch of Babylon 5, and soon to be, once we finish season 5, something mysterious and interesting.
Ooh.
So I'm kind of an all-around sci-fi, craft, math, science nerd. In terms of Mass Effect, I originally tried it out at the recommendation of my then boyfriend, now husband. I hadn't quite realized that they were BioWare games. And as soon as he said the word BioWare, I was like, Gib. Because I'm glad that I had Neverwinter Nights before logging hours was a thing, because the amount of time I spent playing that game and all the fan created modules and everything is probably more than any other game I've played cumulatively.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I played hours and hours and hours with that because I played on Mac.
Oh, okay.
And I was very broke as a high school student. I didn't have a game console. So it's okay, I have Neverwinter Nights and I can download thousands of hours of fan content for it.
Sure.
Because that was one of the BioWare games where they made modding actually friendly. They had a module creation engine and stuff like that, which is really cool. So I powered through ME1 and ME2. And then, of course, had to wait for Mass Effect 3. I then played through Mass Effect 3 immediately upon release, unfortunately, and was deeply disappointed. But
naturally,
with the release of the DLCs, that helped with getting more closure and context and only having a moderate amount of hatred and burnout on the series.
The DLCs did help a lot.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. But if you played I think I hit the ending on I'm not sure if I made it to the ending on release day, but I certainly made it on the day after release day. And oh man, guys, that was rough.
Oh yeah,
we were there. So I'm going to give a warning to to any of our listeners who might be playing the games for the first time. These squad recruitment videos where we have guests are going to be entirely Shadow Broker files. We are not going to restrict ourselves about spoilers at all. So if you are after having met Anna, if you are trying to stay spoiler free, I would advise you to get off and come back later. But we were going to get into the meat of things, and we will be unrestrained. Even games I haven't played. Zach has played Andromeda, and he can spoil that shit for me. I don't give a crap.
I've played some of Andromeda.
I also have not played Andromeda.
I got all kinds of feelings about that, but
I'm actually, when we started this project, I was thinking that we weren't going to do Andromeda, but now that I think more about it, I think we might have to, just so that I can get fresh content that I haven't ever seen before, the initial reactions.
I mean, it's like Babylon Project doing season 5 of Babylon 5, which theoretically, both Jude and I have watched, but it was like well over a decade ago, and we purged all of that shit from our memory.
Yeah.
Like you
And
do.
It's rough. It's not a great season. It's so weird. It does have one of my favorite episodes, though, the view from the gallery, where you just watch the two like normal dudes go about their day.
It has some really good episodes.
And the one that was written by Neil Gaiman is in season 5 too.
And
really
Cora's mother, Cora's father, which is excellent.
Cool. Okay, well, we shouldn't talk too much about Babylon. Babylon 5, considering Zach's never seen it. Although it is a direct influence of Mass Effect. Like, you can see the fingerprints of Babylon 5 all over Mass Effect.
I think I watched a few episodes of Babylon 5 a long time ago and bounced off the art style really hard.
Yeah, it's if you didn't.
I mean, that's fair because it's
if you're not forgiving of the 90s CGI,
they did it all with CGI. In 1994.
Yeah, that's real. Like I came, like I wasn't involved in that in 1994. Like I came back to like mid 2000s, and I couldn't take it.
See, now it's retro. Maybe you'd actually be able to enjoy it now because it's so old that it's come back around to being cool again.
Maybe. I'm very particular about my sci-fi effects.
I mean, like the Citadel as a concept itself is pulled straight from Babylon 5. The council races are pretty much pulled straight from Babylon 5. You can almost one for one match them on a little bit. Like the Asari definitely have
Minbari
vibes, and like the Turian, I feel like have a real Narn vibe to them as well. Like there's some stuff going on there that like somebody had watched Babylon 5 when they were putting together the world book for for Mass Effect, and they're both very horny series.
yes. Although Mass Effect gets away with a lot more than Babylon 5 did, in the mid to late 90s.
Hey man, Babylon 5 managed to get alien penises on screen on network television, which is that's a real achievement, man.
Only because nobody realized what it was. It was screening that episode.
Multiple episodes because there's the statue too.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, speaking of horny aliens with tentacles.
Yeah.
Anna, you wanted to talk about the Hanar.
Yes. I mean, you were like, what do you want to talk about? And I was like, Blasto.
Okay. Well, we should cover them in broad terms before we break into like the specifics. But yeah, the Hanar are, they show up in ME1. So they're straight from the beginning. They're not a council race. They're one of the more minor races. Although at some point, I think somebody says that they're like next in line to be one of the council races.
Yeah.
They are, for lack of a better description, they're jellyfish. They're they look like a Portuguese man of war, but with big, thick, like tentacles, like cephalopod tentacles instead of jellyfish style stringy little tentacles.
Apparently they have a skull too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, at least that's what the Mass Effect wiki told me, which may or may not be accurate. I don't know like how accurate the shit is on that site, but that's what it said.
I think that would like make them like the only creature in the universe with like one bone.
Well, like maybe it's like a cuttle bone from a cephalopod where they've got a central calcification. I'm not even sure if it's a proper bone or not. But anyway, they have a nice place in the Mass Effect universe as the species that is the least humanoid.
Yes.
They don't even really have a face. They are just a pink floating sack with tentacles. And in fact, because they're an aquatic species originally, they can't even survive in 1G naturally. They need like supporting mobility aids, basically. Like they have to have like a little device, that little EZO device to let them float. And then they need like machine translation to because they communicate with, I believe, bioluminescent flashes that allow them to talk. And so then they get this little they have Mail Shep's voice actor do all of the voice acting for all of the Hanar.
Oh yeah.
It's really,
which is better. You're right. You pointed that out in the notes, and yeah, he actually does a better job of that than he does as Mail Shep.
I didn't realize that, but
yeah, Mark Meer killed it with all the alien voice acting.
Yeah.
I knew he did the Vorcha, but I hadn't heard about the Hanar.
I feel bad for Mark Meer. We rag on him. Like he did a good job. He just, when you compare him directly to Jennifer Hale, like, I'm sorry, you can't put like a regular guy up against Jennifer Hale. Like it's just like, no, like you need to bring a heavy hitter in order to be an alternative to somebody who is so good.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where like by the time you hit ME3, like I've seen clips from Mark Meer's voice acting from ME3 and it's quite good. But like, you know, he gained a lot of experience over the course of so many hours of dialogue.
Yeah. And specifically with that character too. He had 3 full games to develop a particular character, which is not terribly, common.
So I've occasionally thought about going back to like ME2 or ME3 and playing a dude Shep.
My very first playthrough was of ME1 was Dude Shep, and then I did one a while back, the full trilogy, just so that I could see Ashley's romance, because I didn't feel like doing the mod on that one.
But why though?
Because a completionist, I had to hit everybody. I had to hit all of not all of them. I never did Thane. I never did Jacob. I never did. I've never done Caden. But like, I was like, well, she had been one of my original romances from the very first game. I was like, I should see her ME3 one. So let's go back and do one. I'm the podcast's resident Ashley apologist. I'm the only person out there who I feel like I'm the only one in the world defending that character. But she's not, which is weird because it's only like my stance is only she's not as bad as everyone says. Not that she's good, she's just not as bad. But
she's only moderately terrible.
I think she gets better. I think that she makes an incredibly bad first impression. Then over the course of developing that character, she gets better. But that a lot of people.
But of course, everybody kills her. So you never see any of that development.
I never do. I always take off Caden because he's such a bowl of oatmeal to me that I don't.
I mean, yeah, Caden's also horrible.
Like of the 2 choices, it's not like to me there was never not a clear one. I just always take Ashley out of habit because I like her slightly better. But like, it's not like you're facing off between like if they maybe choose between Rex and Liara, it's like, well, shit, I'd rather kill myself. Like,
yeah. That'd be like a burn down the franchise moment, I think, if they did that.
I mean, like, really, I mean, that's the kind of bold choices I think that they actually makes it elevates a story from something good to great. But like, Caden and Ashley's fine, I guess. It's whatever. But yeah, I think she makes a particularly bad impression, and because of that, lots of people just write her off and then never go back to her. But that being said, she never reaches top tier. Like, I don't think
because like if you're looking for a strength character to round out your party, there's Rex. If you're looking, but then and also if you're looking for a biotic, there's Liara, right?
And all of the humans in Mass Effect 1, by virtue of being human, are kind of boring choices because they have so little going on. They're both Alliance personnel who have ranks and are just military people, or Caden who went to wizard school. Which, speaking of influences,
he's Harry Potter.
No, specifically he's Ender. He's Ender from Ender's Game because the bio school is like whoever read that wrote that had just read Ender's Game and thought it was great. We were supposed to be talking about the Hanar. This is how these conversations will go. Probably though, we'll just find topics and just go off on little rabbit holes.
Well, see, I want to say like they could have done something really cool with the human characters, which was to really just amplify that feeling of like being a fish out of water and like have that kind of like, but because they didn't have like a whole lot of like companions reacting to the environment, and especially in Mass Effect 1, where you primarily have the 2 of them, like they just feel very flat and boring. But instead you could have had them be like, oh my God, what's that? That's new. That's weird. And instead they're just kind of there.
Yeah. I think I'm with you. I think they also it was early enough that they weren't making really bold choices with characters, especially the human characters. Like when you look at Caden and Ashley, and then you look at Jack, Miranda, and like Kasumi, and even freaking Zaid Masani, like who's not a great character. I don't really like him, but you look at that guy and he in his face has more character than all of Caden's character arc. Like you can look at that guy and be like, that dude has seen some shit. And
then when you hit ME3, Caden also has this like weird incel energy.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, that he's like,
oh, okay.
Like if you play a FemShep and you hit ME3, Caden's like, oh no, Shepard, why didn't you ever choose me? And I'm like, because of this. Because this.
And because Liara was right there.
Right. Yeah, they're both like so just milquetoast.
Yeah, they're not. I'm like, they're not. Neither of them reach top third, or they're not even. They're like the bottom third of total companions. I mean, like I'd take either of them over Jacob any day. Or I'm like maybe Zaid maybe actually does get below them. He has more character. I just don't like his character, but like he is more interesting. But like he's an asshole.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anybody else who's worse. No, they're like really down there at the bottom. But anyway. Okay. Well, since we're talking about characters, who is your romance path?
Oh yeah. So as you probably figured out, I generally play FemShep. Which means that in Mass Effect 1, I always romance Liara, as you do. Regardless of what Shepard you play, it's Liara. And then in ME2, I generally go for Garrus. And then in my ME3 playthroughs, I've kind of waffled back and forth between whether I pick things up again with Liara or whether I continue things with Garrus. And both of them are a really nice romance arc, I think. I particularly like the Garrus one and like the relationship that he and Shepard have, where it's like it really feels genuinely like a friendship that's grown into something more. Also, I love taking the Garrus romance path because I absolutely live for that scene with Mordin where he's like, Shepard, don't swallow.
Yeah, you get the same one with Tali too. It's great.
Or
something like it. It's like, do not ingest.
Yeah. And it's like, thanks, Mordin. Thanks. He's like, I'm just looking out for you, bud.
I know for a fact that there was somebody who has a brain like mine working on the Mass Effect team because they brought up the whole amino acid chirality thing. That's the whole point. And somebody thought of it, and then somebody later thought, oh shit, that's going to cause allergic reactions if there's any kind of sexy times going on, and this is a sexy time game. We better put a thing in there about it specifically.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite moments in ME2 where like Mordin takes you aside and is like, Shepard, you have to know, don't swallow.
If you are looking for a good time and you don't want to play a bunch of different playthroughs, go on YouTube and find somebody's done a supercut of all of the versions of that speech that he does for the various characters. Because there's one where he's talking about like if you're hooking up with Miranda or Jack, he's like, there's a thing about biotics you should know about. Here's a book about how to have sex with a biotic with like extra positions and use for biotics. Like,
oh my god,
yeah. And then there's another one about apparently if you lick Thane, you can get hallucinations.
Wow. I never knew that, but this is blessed information. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. There's that same conversation. He's got it for a bunch of different aliens. You can go watch the supercut. It's totally worth it. Yes. Yeah. Liara and Garrus are totally valid top tier characters to run through. Who's your top like companions? The ones that you like always find yourself bringing on missions and stuff.
I mean, Liara, Garrus, Tali, Rex. Like, I'm pretty committed to like the ones that we get in ME1. And,
okay, yeah, the classics.
Yeah, especially since we get like so much character development for them. I also really love Legion.
Yeah, Legion's so good.
Yeah.
I can't wait till we get to him.
Yeah, like he's a fantastic character. You mentioned Jack and Miranda, and those are both characters that I really wish that we saw more of.
Yeah, I'm with you.
That they're both, I think, really interesting. And for both of them, I wish that ME2 had spent less time like being like, Jack and Miranda are sexy, no matter which Shepard you play. Which, like, yeah, it's a horny game, but like, we could have character development for Miranda that isn't just like her ass taking up 3/4 of the screen in every conversation with her.
Yeah, and supposedly they've improved that in the Legendary Edition, where they've removed some of the butt shots, although apparently not all of the butt shots for Miranda. Yeah, and I'm with you on that one. I think that what was the joke I had, which is that they need a mod that adds butt shots in for everybody else and just make it all equal.
Give me that Rex ass.
I mean, honestly, yeah, right? Like,
I mean, it's a horny game. You should just lean into it for everybody, man. Like, it's the game for monster fuckers. Let's do it.
They're honestly cowards for not including any Krogan romances.
Yeah, for sure. Have a quad, Mass Effect.
Yeah. That's one of the things. Is like, I feel like there are a few characters, and Jacob was one of them, where I felt like the game was like pushing me, being like, Shepard, you should definitely fuck this character. And
yeah, he gets sexualized a lot, for sure. Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I ended up just not taking those characters with me on missions and stuff like that. Like, I'm not sure I'd ever take Jacob on a mission other than like his, his one character one.
His companion mission. he's one of those characters that I like. Everybody hates Ashley and really rags on her, but like I think Jacob deserves a lot of that trash too, because he willingly joins Cerberus and like just fucking like it seems to be cool with it. Like he just likes Cerberus as far as I could tell.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, dude, like they're the fucking space Nazis. Like, like let's maybe not do that. But anyway, we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to ME too.
At least Miranda has like more complex reasons for being associated with Cerberus.
Yeah. And also does like a big hard turn on them later and spends like devotes time to, and Jacob does that too in ME3 a little bit. Not nearly quite so, not quite so dramatically, but he does try to pull, he gets people out of there, which is cool. I liked also that he is the only companion, as far as I can tell, that you can romance in a game. And then later on is like, never mind, Shepard, I found somebody else. And you're like, I've got my own thing going on now. And you know what? Mad respect to that guy for not just waiting around on Shepard.
Yeah, honestly.
Nobody else fucking does that.
Yeah. I really, well, if you don't romance Garrus or Tali, they end up together.
I hate it. I hate it so much. We haven't gotten to there yet. I hadn't expressed this opinion yet, but I am such a jealous person that every time I see Tali with Garrus, I'm like, no, Tali is my girlfriend. Stop that. I know I'm not romancing her this time, but she is my girlfriend. Stop it. You're supposed to be a bro, Garrus. Stay off. But yeah, no, it is cute. I do like I understand the appeal. I just have a visceral emotional reaction to them. No, I do like the fact. I wish they would do that a little bit more, as well with some of the other companions, or even just like people on the ship and stuff like that who were available. That they could have sort of paired off. I like the I can't remember the guy's name, but I think it's Gabby and her little like engineer boyfriend who show up in ME2 and stick around for 3. And there's like the little will they won't they thing going on between them, and it's like, oh, you two are adorable.
Yeah, I really like that. So there was one thing I wanted to mention with like, on the topic of Caden and Ashley as romance options. One of the things that always like entirely turns me off of romancing them is the chain of command thing, because like I feel like it's really different to bang a like external contractor than somebody who like directly reports to you in the chain of command. Like these are like, honestly, neither one is very good if we're being honest here. But at least Liara or Garrus could be like, okay, bye, Shepard.
I'm gone. Yeah.
I'm gone. I've got my own things going on.
I think that's got to be a symptom. We talk reasonably frequently about the fact that this is a game from 2007, and that people just weren't paying attention to this kind of thing.
Yeah, it made me uncomfortable back then. The
guys who made it, because it was almost all guys, weren't paying attention to this kind of thing. And not that excuses it, but rather that like puts it into some context. That being said, I now remember if you romance Ashley, she brings it up at one point and says like, are you okay with this? I'm okay with it if you're okay with it. And Shepard's like, yeah, I'm cool with it. But that being said, bringing it up and having both people say, yes, that's cool, doesn't necessarily make it cool.
Yeah.
Because just like, that I'm with you there. I'm 100%. And that's the kind of thing that wouldn't be terribly difficult to fix by making those characters. Maybe Shepard can't really be part of the Alliance and a Spectre at the same time.
Right.
And so they get removed from chain of command.
Yeah.
Or have those characters come in and like they're technically Alliance members, but they're like not directly under Shepard's command.
Right.
They're, they're allowed to make decisions about staying on the ship or not, because, maybe not everybody in the Alliance wants to be part of a Spectre ship, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was fixable. And I agree. It's gross.
Yeah. Anyway, the Hanar, right?
Yeah. So the Hanar are going back like 20 minutes. The Hanar are they're tentacly race. I do 100% like the fact that they are very much not humans. And I enjoy all of the non-humanoid races that we see, or species that we see, and I love the fact that they need to have like a mobility aids and stuff. I always love the idea of using technology to bring different species that couldn't interact together. That being said, why don't we get Hanar in mech suits?
Seriously.
100%.
To me, they kind of fit into the same niche as like the Harmagians from the Becky Chambers Wayfarer books.
Okay.
which if you haven't read those, they are essentially a mollusk
Okay.
that has evolved to sapience, and they have like carts that they use to get themselves around, and they have dietary restrictions based off of like things that are too hot or too cold, or very much also the thing of like that their skin is permeable, so like they can't slide around on a dirty floor because it'll harm them. But it's interesting that they're both cases of a very physiologically like weak / fragile species that has managed to gain like galactic power. I like the Harmagians more than the Hanar. Although the Hanar are next in line for the council. It's really interesting to see a truly alien species.
Yeah, I'm with you. That I love the fact that they're so weird. Again, I just want to I just kind of want more of them. Like I want to be able to interact with more Hanar. I want to have more of their like interpersonal relationships and stuff, and like see into their culture. And yeah, I also want evil Hanar because they are strange enough that they don't show up except on the Citadel pretty much, and a couple of other little. I know there's one on Noveria too, and I'm sure there's ones in 2 and 3. But like there should be ones that like have some sort of combat suit that you can load them into and make them like actual enemies so I can fight them, because almost all of the other races or species that show up, with the exception of I think the Elcor and probably the Volus too. But like those minor non-humanoid races, they don't give us an opportunity to have like enemies, whereas everybody else is allowed to be an asshole that I can shoot in the head. Give me a chance to fight the Hanar too. That would be fun.
Yeah.
And then tell us about your love for Blasto.
Okay, yeah. So Blasto, I just love the basic concept that it's one of the like weird creative things from the Mass Effect franchise that like somebody just had a weird idea and then everybody ran with it. Right? Like
that has big feed off the audience's enthusiasm energy. Like
that we've got like somebody put in, in the first one, like, the poster or something like that, and people just ran with it. And the idea of like the Hanar James Bond / Dirty Harry crossover, it's just so wild. And I love the amount of like weird in-game lore. Like I think we get the entire film summary for Blasto 6 Partners in Crime. And it's just really fun and like and the fact that you get all these like, it's not just like the Blasto franchise. We also have weird lore about how people react to the Blasto franchise that like the Hanar think it's like defamatory.
The fact that they were willing to just like throw in little stuff like that is great. I love that's the kind of thing, especially in the version of it that you see in 1, which is that it's 2 is that they just like mention it offhand and then people reacted to it. And that's the kind of storytelling I love, where you're like, here's a tiny little detail. Let's just throw a bunch of those out and see what gets the audience excited. And this is one of those ones that got the audience excited. I remember the memes about Blasto from back in the day when things were getting released and everything. Didn't he have like a Vorcha sidekick or something?
Elcor.
Oh, Elcor. Bubbin.
His partner in Blasto 6 is an Elcor. Also, I'm pretty sure he fucks an Elcor in Blasto 6.
It's headcanon to me that Blasto has fucked every species that anybody has ever introduced to. Every time. The vibe I always get from it is it's Bond, it's a little bit James Bond, but the idea of like every time it's the Bond girl that shows up in every movie, it's a different species. So like he gets Vorcha, he gets human, he gets Volus, he gets.
Well, the tagline is like a lover in every port, a gun in every tentacle.
Oh, so good.
Where you could also swap that and say a lover for every tentacle. If we're gonna be cursed.
Now I want to hear Morden's thing about when warning Shepard about hooking up with a Hanar.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not having a Hanar companion was a truly missed opportunity.
Yeah, man, they couldn't even, and they didn't even go for it for Andromeda either. Like,
Yeah.
you could just imagine like a jellyfish tank on top of a mech with like just the little top part of the Hanar sticking up out of it.
Oh
That'd be
yeah.
great.
Oh, and way back in the day, I played a lot of the Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot.
Yeah, I played a ton.
It remains like the only multiplayer game that I've ever actually played, really.
Mhm.
Because you could like, you know, the culture of it was like actually fairly decent and not super hostile.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, the communities around it were also shockingly fairly decent. Like that it had the Mass Effect players rather than the like Battlefield players.
Yeah, and it was also PvE rather than PvP for the most
Yes.
part, which
Mhm.
meant that you weren't really hostile. There wasn't a reason to be hostile to your companion, to the people who were also playing alongside you, which helps a lot for that kind of culture. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, you know, that you can still have the thing of like, you know, people could still play like scrubs and you could still have to carry them. But, you know, that's the case in any PvE multiplayer. And it was also fine. And like that the game didn't like punish you too severely for your teammates fucking up.
Yeah. And if I recall, the rounds were pretty short.
Yeah.
So that like if something went bad, it wasn't like you wasted an hour of your life like you would have on some.
It was 15
like,
minutes generally.
Yeah. So like if somebody's really bringing you down, it's just like, well, we'll just do better the next time, and they won't be in my group next time, so it won't matter.
Right. And they put so much effort into that in terms of like the variety of the levels, the variety of the characters that you could play. You could play a Batarian, you could play a Vorcha, you could play like whatever the hell you wanted. It was really cool.
Yeah, I had a ton of hours on Corian Engineer. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think you'd even play a Volus in this one, which was just
you could play the Volus, the like bouncy ball. It was wild. And you dodge and like you just like roll like a ball. It was pretty great.
That's awesome. I didn't do the Volus at any point. That's fantastic.
Well, I played all of them. I ended up getting the best banner.
Oh, nice.
No idea whether that's like still on my account or whatever, but it did pretty decently. But you know, there was a contingent of the fandom for the multiplayer specifically that was like, give us a Hanar, cowards.
Yeah, I mean, there's such a weird race in the right, or such weird species in the right ways, where it's like they're just strange. Now, that being said, it's not all fun and games. Because what the fuck is up with the Hanar drill like thing? Like,
and
it's really gross.
And that's one of the things that makes me like think about them in terms of being similar to the Harmagians, because the Harmagians also are super oppressive.
Yeah. So if anybody doesn't remember, the Drell that's the species that Thane is, and apparently the Drell are a quote unquote client race of the Hanar, and that like they spend a bunch of them spend their lives in servitude to Hanar houses and like doing their dirty work for them. Which on the one hand, I do like the fact that the Hanar are in need of people to be like assassins for them and stuff. That's cool. I like that. But also like, yo, dude, when you have to put in your in the Wikipedia or the wiki article, although to outside observers, the relationship can be construed as a form of slavery, and then you need to say, but it's like, no, dude, you should step back.
That's not great. And like the Drell are in that situation because like their homeworld got fucked up and they had to go live with the Hanar.
And it was specifically because the Drell had like over-consumed their resources and over like populated their world, which is what caused them to have to flee it, apparently. Mm-hmm. Which is that touches on some stereotypes for a lot of people, underprivileged people, which are like, oh god, like this is one of those things where some guy just wrote it and nobody thought about it critically for 2 seconds. You know? Where like, because it wouldn't be that hard to say more like, well, these guys, the group of Drell that ended up on the Hanar homeworld came in as refugees, and instead of being like a client race, it's just that they all got adopted into Hanar families as part of like trying to find homes for these people. It's like, okay,
Right.
well, here's some people specifically that are going to help you out. And then they become friends. And then like these two societies become integrated because of the fact that one of them spent a lot of time and effort saving the other, and then put in some stuff about like, how a bunch of the Drell are still uncomfortable about the fact that their culture has been sort of erased by having to assimilate into Hanar culture,
Yeah.
You could actually do there is a story, a version of this story that is actually really cool and a nuanced look at how sometimes these groups integrate and are treated by one another. That isn't just, hey, it's slavery, but not really slavery.
Yeah. And they kind of just keep rolling with that. It's slavery, but not really slavery in terms of like,
Yeah.
It really snowballs in terms of the amount of lore there, because there's all the stuff of like, oh, well, it's fine because like, the Drell are integrated into the Hanar families, and like they can even be integrated enough to learn the Hanar soul names. And it's like,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound like they're actually integrated into the family. Like
No.
that sounds like they're servants. It's the most charitable word that we could use.
Yeah. Now that being said, the soul name versus face name thing is really cool. That is a banger idea for a culture where like you have the name that you give the world and then the name that you give to like your closest friends, and that you are a different person to these. In a way, you've got a different label for these different groups. That's a banger of an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were even setting up all these like cool reveals for a Mass Effect romance with a Hanar, and they just went the other way with it.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that would have been really cool to be like, to have a Hanar being like, this one's soul name is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I brought this up in one of I think this wasn't even in 7. I think this was Monster Mechanics, where I was talking about one of the cool things they could have done for the Quarian romance, where you romance Tali, is making Shepard put on the suit, because he has to start living a clean life in order to interact physically with Tali.
Yeah,
and like
that'd be wild.
That'd be fucking cool. Where it's like, okay, you have to make sacrifices in order to have this relationship, and doing the same sort of thing with the Hanar would be neat. Where like maybe Shepard has to come up with a soul name, like having to define something for yourself that is only for your partner would be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, in fact, they could have done that with fucking Thane. Like, why not? Like, why couldn't he have had a soul name? Like, there's no reason why that, if he's from the Hanar society and had been integrated into it, why didn't he pick up that cool aspect of their culture, and have that himself?
Yeah, there's definitely a missed opportunity there.
Yeah. I need to look up a list of their soul names, because they are cool. Like the actual, like the various examples of them, they're not soul names, but they're like face names, the ones that are like whole sentences.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it always like the name descriptors like are always kind of reminiscent to me of like the culture ships.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too.
So definitely, a bit of inspiration there, I would say. Like the names for the AIs and stuff like that in the culture.
Yeah. This is weird. The list that I'm seeing here is not what I'm used to seeing. I used to feel like they had like English names that were sentences.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing just a bunch of other, like maybe I'm getting their Hanar names and not their like face names. That's weird. Huh. This is weird. Is this a Berenstain Bears moment where like I literally am
No. I remember this too. I'm looking at the Hanar.
But if I look at the list, I'm getting stuff like, Daeladar and like Cassindus and stuff.
Yeah, I feel like I remember their names being a lot more like poetic sounding.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm being gaslit by the internet now.
Because it's in the like wherever it is, it's in the like speech section, right? Because it has to do with did it just disappear off of the Mass Effect wiki in like the last 48 hours?
This is so
I
weird.
saw this.
Did we slip into an alternate timeline?
I mean, okay, here we go. For example, a Hanar known for its cynicism may take a name that means illuminates the folly of the dancers.
Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking.
Okay, yeah. If you there's another list I found. There's like all the translations of the names are like in parentheses. So like you'll have a name, but
Oh,
that
okay.
translates to like cartographer of the myriad seas or grace of the boundless
There you
current,
go.
the one who flows into the dreams of others.
Those are lovely. I love that.
Oh, that's so good. That's so banger. This is like one of those things where it's like, why didn't you do more of this? I want more.
Yeah.
I guess we do have to bring up. No, I don't have to, but I'm going to bring up Fornax now because we're talking about little things in the world that ran.
And we've already been extremely horny on here.
It's a horny fucking game, man.
It really is.
Like literally, like the first thing you can do when you walk out onto the Citadel is go talk to the consort, who's pretty fucking horny, and then you do her first quest, and then she fucks you, which you don't even necessarily know is happening. Like.
And you can go to a strip club and get a lap dance, like first thing on the Citadel.
Yeah, it's like they're like the only way it could have been like sooner in the game is if you're on the Normandy and they're like, they're like, okay, we're gonna drop you onto Eden Prime. Do you want a hand job before you go or something? Like, it's like just about as early into the game as they possibly can. They're like, let's be fucking horny. But yeah, so Fornax gets mentioned offhand. It is a oh god, it's like a 5 sensory experience pornography magazine.
And I love that this Fornax is another thing where like it started out with just being an Easter egg, right? Where like Blasto, like it started out as an Easter egg. It was just like one image of the
cover with a Hanar
the cover with a Hanar posed suggestively, apparently.
Yes.
It just says like spiraled, and then there's like Krogan specific versions, and like the thing of like the 5 sensory experience.
Yeah, and then the internet, because of Rule 34, they made Fornax real. There is an actual fully published version of Fornax you can get if you want it.
Of course.
Yeah, I like that because the people who made the game were horny themselves. We can tell. You're not gonna convince me they weren't. There's probably there's enough information on like the various image sites where everything's beautifully tagged about what property it's from and what it contains. You could probably do an in-depth data analysis to see like, is Mass Effect a hornier fan base than all the others just because they grew they cultivated all of these people who are monster fuckers into it, because there are still people out there making Mass Effect porn quite free, like right now. Normally when a property ends, let's say that the horniness sort of dies down over time as the people are no longer engaged with it, but man, the Mass Effect people are still out there.
I mean, I know people who still play Mass Effect 2 at least once a year, and like, it's a fandom that like, especially since there's so many paths that you can take, and like so many different varieties of interactions you can have. Even like, not just like who do you romance and who do you recruit and who survives the suicide mission and ME2 and like all of those things, or all of the choices that you make. Like there's also Paragon versus Renegade. Like, where do you fall in the spectrum of those? And you can create like very complex forms of personality for your Shepard based off of like what Paragon options you take versus what Renegade options you take. Like I tend to play a Shepard where like when it comes to like having an opportunity to like be kind, I'll always take the Paragon option, like that I'll be nice to people, but I will be impatient with institutions.
Yeah, I get you.
So like, if it's like, Garrus talking to me about like, his deep-seated need for revenge, then I'm going to be like, hey buddy, like that doesn't sound psychologically healthy, and maybe we should talk about this. But if it's like the council jerking me around for the 11 millionth time, I'm going to be like, get fucked.
Hanging up on the council is the best the best renegade option in all of the games.
I generally also take the renegade options where it's like you punch someone.
Okay, so since we're in the sort of shipping corner area, so there are 23,000 Mass Effect works on Archive of their own.
Wow.
And I am now looking at the top relationships. So I think you can guess what the top pairing is going to be.
Shepard
Right?
Liara.
No. Shepard Garrus.
Oh, wild.
FemShep Garrus is the top, the most, the second one will surprise you in true clickbait format. Caden Alinko FemShep.
Huh.
Ugh,
He's number 2.
why though?
I don't know.
I mean,
however,
your kink is my
3
kink, and that's okay. Your kink is not my kink, and that's okay, right?
It's fine. I just wouldn't have expected it. Not that it's wrong, but more that just like, oh, I didn't realize that Caden had a following. However, number 3, Caden and male Shep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Liara female Shep is all the way down at 4. After which we have Thane FemShep, and then just Shepard Garrus. I like that Garrus is so popular that he gets 2 entries. One of whom is not female Shep, it's just Shepard. And then, oh yeah, he's on here. He's on this list 3 times because you get another version. Female Shepard ampersand Garrus Vicarian has 542 just because they can't decide about slash versus ampersand. That's great. Archive of Our, no, this is just the Archive of Our Own people who are their own subset, but
I mean, it's a solid romance if you go with Garrus.
Yeah. It's the only male character that I've romanced more than once, I think. Because he's just such a bro. He's such a nice bro. Like he's just a friend.
He's also one of the only interesting romance options for FemShep, honestly.
Yeah. I need somebody who can explain Thane to me because I know there's obviously a huge following for Thane out there, and that was one I never got the appeal of him as a romance.
I think it's that I think a lot of people who like Thane, again, like a lot of the metadata type stuff for him, and like kind of what you get into when you get into the romance with him.
Sure.
That like on the surface you have the like tragic sad boy thing, but then like in Mass Effect 2 you can see what everybody brought on board, right?
Yeah.
In their personal effects, and he brings a box full of books, and it's very endearing. I think that people like those kind of details about him.
Yeah.
That he has the kind of like thing of being fucked up, but still being like a kind person. And
also there's no accounting for just pure responding to the voice actor.
Right.
Like, like the audio chemistry of it.
Also those big eyes, you know?
Yeah. And big wife guy energy, you know?
Yeah. Like all of those together, I think, you know, I can see it. You know, he's not a romance option that I typically choose. And I think that the romance is very sweet once you kind of get into it.
I have to say, I rag on him a little bit, but like as much as I don't like Thane in Mass Effect 2, and I didn't say I don't like him, but like he's not one of my top tier. But like, man, Mass Effect 3 Thane is such a fucking gut punch. Oh my God. Like, Like for a character who I didn't like the first time around, when you get to Mass Effect 3 and you get his final scene, and it's just like, I need to pause the game and go cry real quick. Like, let me curl up under the desk with a bottle of wine for a little while.
I mean, there's so many of those in Mass Effect 3.
Yeah.
And then you hit the end, and then you cry under the desk with a bottle of wine for an entirely different reason, because nothing you did mattered.
Yeah.
Oh God.
I remember,
because you have 3 choices and nothing you ever did mattered.
Yeah.
I remember finishing that and just like having to go take my dog on a long walk and just like dissociate for a bit.
Yeah. I don't, on a meta level, I'm not entirely sure what we're going to do for the podcast when we get to Mass Effect 3, the end, the very, very end.
Yeah.
I think we might end it. We might end the normal podcast, just the me and Zach episode, right before we get to the final push and the bullshit.
Yeah.
The place where I normally end. Like in my head, that's where Mass Effect 3 actually ends, is the room where you call everybody and say goodbye and be like, okay, this is it. And then the game just ends.
Yeah.
And it's just this eternal pause before the final conclusion moment. Because I haven't played the end since the DLC for the end came out. Like the one that like fixed things, which didn't fix anything.
Like you get slightly more context for some things, but like really, no.
I think I might, and then do that as the normal, and then I think we might just have a giant panel of like 5 people, and maybe Anna, you'll come back, and we'll all kvetch together about the ending of this.
Happy to come back and complain about the ending of that game because
yeah,
woof.
It is, and like they were building up to the dark matter energy, more dark matter entities as a bigger threat, which is such a cooler idea. That the fact that the whole reason the Reapers are doing what they're doing is because they are trying to build up the forces to face off against an even greater threat.
Yeah.
And so the answer then becomes, do you keep the Reapers in order to fight the dark matter entities, or do you destroy the Reapers and maybe leave the galaxy vulnerable to the final destruction? And it's like, that's a fucking moral choice I can get behind. Like, that's interesting. It's not what we ended up getting is just not great.
Yeah. And the thing that always feels like such a betrayal to me is that everything else up to that moment, like everything you do affects things, further on in the game. It's like the ultimate version of the Telltale games. Liara will remember this. Because choices you make in ME1 influence what you see in ME3.
Yes. When they remembered to write it to the save file.
Yeah. But it's such a it's such a fundamental thing that's built into these games that everything you do can matter, even the small shit, not even the big decisions. And then you get to the end and it's like, no matter what path you took to get there, you only have the same choices. And it just feels like, if you've spent all this time like saving the Krogan and, teaching the Geth and the Quarians to love each other. And then you get to the end and you're like, well, shit. Like, what do I do? Right?
Yes.
Like, none of that mattered.
Yeah, and it's also such a contrivance, like the fact that you walk onto the catalyst and it turns out that like, there's some fucking stupid AI there that's like, it's now the catalyst is part of the Reapers and is like allowing you to take control. And like, that doesn't make any sense. Like it just comes out of fucking left field. And you're talking to the kid who, I know the game is supposed to make you think that the kid matters a whole bunch, but I don't fucking care about this stupid child.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just do that. Like, you have to take a character. Like, if it had been Morden, like if it had been Legion, if it had been all of these characters that I loved who died and or now talking, like then I would have an emotional connection. But it's just some stupid kid.
Like, man, you could have a thing of like, have the kid flicker between like, Morden being like, will you choose the organics? And then Legion being like, or will you choose the synthetics? Or like whatever. Like,
and like, you shouldn't even really choose. The choice should have been made, if you're going to have to choose something, the choice should have been made by your actions up to that point.
Right, exactly.
Like, you've played a Shepard who is going to have a take on this. You've formed that character over 3 games. The fact that you could just wildly choose at the end, like just trigger a fucking cutscene.
You have 300 hours worth of choices. Like, roll credits.
Yes.
Like,
and
give us the like in any fucking JRPG, right? Like, you fight the boss and then you get the end credits that tell you what happened based on your choices in the game.
Yeah. Also, we're just in it now. But like, they did not, at least to me, they did not foreshadow the fact that this all ends with Shepard's death. Like, you should be setting that shit up in Mass Effect 1, that like, this is about Shepard's final fight. Like, you should be saying like, the only way this ends is with Shepard dying. Like, there is ways to foreshadow that. They just didn't do any of it. They didn't do it through Mass Effect 3. Like, they started to show like, this is taking a toll on Shepard. This is hurting Shepard. Shepard's got wounds now that are going to take forever to heal. But they're talking about how do you live with this kind of damage? How do you live with doing this? But then at the end, you die.
You can like get to that point and you're like, okay, well after this, then like Shepard and Garrus are going to go and retire on a tropical island and like have, 10 years of spa day and it'll be great. Right? Yeah. Like,
except you can't, because you know that you're walking into a situation where with very, like, you have to choose the stupid ending, which I will, this red stupid. Yeah. There is a chance that Shepard could live, but like, you have to choose the dumb ending that kills the Reapers. And then you have a chance to maybe live if you had enough war assets. Fuck that shit. Like, you didn't set this stuff up properly to pay it off.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway. We have to get off of the ending. Otherwise, this will be 4 hours long and I will be hoarse by the end of it. And I have to record Monster Mechanics after this. So let's check back on my document, see if there's anything else that we wanted to talk about here. We are ostensibly here to talk about the Hanar.
Nominally. Do we want to talk about the Enkindlers?
Yes, their relationship with the Protheans is interesting. Where like they think that they were given sentience by the Enkindlers, the Protheans.
Yeah.
And then I feel like we just didn't
But
that it turns out that like they're sashimi.
But we know that the Protheans were just like, Hanar are delicious.
Yeah.
Breaded and fried.
There's a whole fucking novel about various races, various species reacting to how Protheans actually are based off of Javik. Like Javik is such a fucked up character in so many ways because he just doesn't care. He doesn't care about anybody other than Protheans. And like the fact that like they use, oh God, there's just so much fucked up shit with that character. But like especially the Hanar should like have a fucking civil war over the reaction to an actual goddamn Prothean being like, yeah, you guys are fucking delicious. We like to eat you guys. And they would be like, and just like a giant does not compute flashing across their cephalopod faces as they are like, what the fuck does this mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Like that would be so interesting.
Of course, to pay that off, you would have had more Hanar, which of course I would love more Hanar.
Yeah.
But like, then that would be a really good thing.
Yeah. So it'd be really cool if all that was reflected in.
Discord and Zach don't get along, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's my connection here.
And we've got an hour of recording, so I think we're good. Anna, if people want to find you on the internet, where can they get a hold of you?
So you can find me on the Complete Discography or BabPod Twitters, which I'm sure that Scott will very kindly link in the show notes.
That is exactly what I was about to say. Yep.
And I nominally have a Twitter at the _ Mianai, MIANAAI.
I'll put a link to that as well.
Yeah, but also I'm like not actually on Twitter.
Yeah.
I just lurk. So you know,
right there with you.
But you should.
If you at me there, then I will respond. But like, I'm not actually interesting.
But listeners, you should definitely go check out the Complete Discography and or BabPod, whichever one touches your fancy. Both. I will not only link to those, I will link specifically to the episodes of those that I was on, so you have a nice little pathway directly into those where you can hear multiple friendly voices now, not just Anna. So on that note, we were going to see you guys. I don't know when this episode's coming out, so it'll probably be next week, unless it's a Monster Pod week, at which point it'll be the week after next. But thank you so much, Anna, for showing up and talking Mass Effect with us.
Yeah. Happy to join you. This was fun.
It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thanks for having me.
We will see you guys later. Thank you for listening to the N7 Project. If you would like to read the upcoming playthrough roadmap, there is a link in the show notes below. We can be found on Twitter as @N7Project, at our website, masseffectpodcast.com, or via our Discord, scottpaladin.com/Discord. If you'd like to support the podcast, honestly, the easiest way to be to write us a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or your podcatcher of choice. We read every one of those, and it gives us a real boost every time, and it helps people find the podcast. Or if you want to give monetary support, all funds to our Patreon, patreon.com/monsterpod, will also go to supporting this podcast. Mass Effect, its associated characters, sounds, plot points, whatever, are copyright by some giant faceless corporation. The N7 Project was produced and edited by me, Scott Paladin, and hosted by myself and my best friend, Zach Jakeways. Audio is copywritten 2022, Scott Paladin. This has been a Library of Cursed Knowledge production.